Brews&Boxing, episode 15. 15, can you believe it, boys? We've made it to 15 shows. That's a long time. I know a lot of pilots that didn't make it that long. But welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. As if this is your first time joining us, thanks for checking us out. We have all sorts of other cool shows back on the channel here, so please go check all those out if you're a fan of boxing, which I know you are because that's why you're watching this. With me, as always, is Filthy Rich. Filthy Rich, how you doing?
It's good.
Filthy Rich, man, a few words, always fired up, as you can tell. And also here is the man, the judge, Jimmy James. How you doing, Judge?
I'm good. How are you fellas tonight?
You know, rocking and rolling, wheeling and dealing, high styling, high flying. All right, boys, let's get right into the news here because we got a lot of news to cover. All right, first bit of Brews and News here. First thing we have to do every show that we talk about Brews and News, our show is called Brews and Boxing. So, of course, there's got to be beer involved. First thing we do in Brews and News is we pop a beer. So, gentlemen.
Cheers.
I didn't forget this week. All right, first bit of news we want to talk about is our favorite boxer. I use that. Okay, he's not. I don't like him at all. But Big Baby Miller not only loses his nickname to a better fighter, but he failed yet another drug test. Is his career over, boys? Errol Spence says his career is over. I want to know what you guys think. Filthy Rich, we'll start with you. Is Big Baby Miller's career over, and should he give his nickname to that other guy that named himself Big Baby, that heavyweight we talked about last week?
Well, quite the contrary. I think it's Jared Anderson, Big Baby Anderson. I think it's time that he gives up that name because he doesn't want to be known as Big Baby. Hey, is that the one that failed the drug test?
Again.
So Big Baby Anderson, I think, is the one that's going to be changing his name in the near future unless Jarrell Miller just gets forgotten about somehow. But when you have drug tests like this on your history, you'll probably be remembered forever, unfortunately. As far as like his career goes, let me tell you, I got an idea here. How about he and like all these other drug users just get their own league started? Just get like a little boxing federation or something where he and like Povetkin can decide what drugs and what roids and what they want to take. Put them in the ring together. First one goes down loses. How about that? I don't know.
Do you remember that old Saturday Night Live skit where they had the all-drug Olympics? And they had you could take anything that you want, and then Phil Hartman was a weightlifter whose arms got ripped off while he was lifting because he's on all sorts of some kind of fish paralyzer and all sorts of other things. So is this career over, Filthy Rich, you think?
Say that again?
Is his career over, do you think?
Look, what is he, like 31, I think? Something like that. I don't think it's over yet, but he doesn't have much of a future. Let him pass the next drug test and put him in the ring with someone. It's not over, but I mean, how many chances is this guy going to get? I don't know who's going to want to promote him anymore. He just signed with Bob Arum. I don't know why Bob Arum would want to touch this guy anymore. Maybe he goes with Al Heyman. Al Heyman took Floyd. He took Mike Tyson. He's known to kind of take these guys. So maybe he signs with the PBC or something. But I don't think his career is over yet.
Judge Jimmy James, passing off to you there. What do you think about Big Baby Miller? That's a tongue twister. But Big Baby Miller. Is his career over? And what do you think about Errol Spence coming out and saying, yeah, it's done? I don't about him throwing his 2 cents in there.
Well, Errol Spence's 2 cents. I don't know, unless he's super good friends with Miller or knows an inside track. He's just spouting. But it's possible. Do I think it's over? I think it's going to be difficult for him to get big name fights. So he's going to end up fighting a lot of bums, which might be a benefit to him on the career wise or for record stats. But
no money.
I mean, if he's not. I don't think he's going to be making money if he just keeps not passing these drug tests. Like nobody's going to want to take that chance to waste training in a time when you have to, when you only get like 2 or 3 fights a year with these guys. I don't see it happening. So is his career over? No. But I think his big name fights are probably gone.
Was there really a guy that you could think of that you'd really want to watch Baby Miller fight? I can't think of one.
I mean, there's heavyweights that I'd want to see him fight. I mean, like Povetkin, why not? Let's let him do it. Povetkin ain't no slouch either, man. He's a crafty little dude. Well, he's not little, but
Not little.
yeah, but he's crafty, man. He might not be a name that pops up on giant paydays, but he's no slouch. But yeah, I don't know. There's no one that really just jumps out. I mean,
And this was steroids too. This wasn't tainted meat or something to help it with his weight. This was human growth hormone, I believe he got caught with this
no,
time.
he still denies it.
Well,
He
can
denies
deny it
all
he
of them.
wants. But what is this, number 5 or 6? I don't even know how many this.
I thought it was 3, but
I was being
still 3 too
but
many,
still,
man.
yeah.
3 too many.
I mean, it goes back a few episodes back when we talked about the different drug testing that was. Rich, you had a big name or a big talk about that. Was this Veda that caught him doing this? Do you know, or who caught him with this one?
I don't know. I don't know who caught him on this one, but someone recently said was it a boxer? I can't remember who said it, but they said from here on forward, he should only do the VADA testing because VADA catches everyone. Now, if you got caught by like USADA, something's wrong. Something's wrong with you.
He's
but,
trying to get caught.
I don't know if VADA caught him this time, but someone mentioned maybe on one of these ESPN fights that he should be VADA tested for the rest of his career. And you know what? I think he would sign up for it because at this point, what choice would you have? I do want to mention quickly, Povetkin failed the drug test against Wilder. That fight got called off. That's why I brought up Povetkin's name. And remember, Jarrell Miller was supposed to fight. I believe he was the one who was supposed to fight Anthony Joshua, and then Ruiz was the replacement.
Yep.
So anything can really happen. Maybe Joshua wants to fight Miller. Who knows? If Joshua wants it, if the heavyweights want it, they're going to get it. Now, as far as like big money or big names, two different things there. Because big money, you're looking at maybe an 80-20 purse, where before it could have been like 65-35 or 60-40. So this is going to hit him in the pocketbooks and get fined if you not miss weight, but if you don't meet restrictions on the road leading up to the fight, it's going to hit your pocketbooks. But Miller has backed himself in a corner where, again, I still think his career is not over yet, but he's going to have a lot of hurdles and obstacles to overcome here.
Well, one good thing that came
put
from
baby in a corner.
It's time for him to go night, I think. But one good thing came out of his failed drug test. We got Ruiz flash in the pan for a little bit there, and kind of reignited the heavyweight division for a little bit with his big upsets. And now he's disappeared off the face of the planet. Apparently, no one knows where he is. But you see that? You guys see that? His trainers don't even know where he is. He just disappeared. He won't answer his phone. I don't know if he's dead, if he's on vacation or what. He just doesn't – no one knows where he is. Just weird. I mean, how does that happen? I don't know. All right, let's move on to the second bit of news here. A few weeks ago, more than a few weeks ago, when we were talking about our heavyweights, that was probably episode 1, right? That might have been very first episode when we talked heavyweights. Mm-hmm. We talked about Dillian Whyte, and we talked about how he has to fight that big fight before he gets the respect. We both had him on a 3 on our heavyweight list, I believe, at the time on our Filthy 5. But now he wants that big fight. He's saying it. He called up Tyson Fury. He told him, fight me or vacate the belt. And he's also claimed that he's knocked out Fury several times during sparring sessions, which obviously no one has seen or heard, but it must have been that mean left hook. Yeah. But that acquaintance of the show Matt Seabach talked about. What do you guys think about Dillian Whyte calling out Fury? Fury's tied up in fights right now. I don't know how he's going to get that done, but what do you think, Judge? We'll start with you.
In the last 3 weeks, there has been a lot of fights being called off that are, or not called off, called out, that are in the books and that will be happening. And it just seems like they just keep stacking them and stacking them and stacking them and stacking them. And I don't know how they believe that this stuff is going to happen, considering that there's no real fans, so there's no gate, and people aren't willing to take a pay cut, and they're just saying that all this stuff is going to happen like 2020 or early 2021, and I just don't understand what's happening with this. So, I mean, would I like to see it? Why not? Dillian Whyte, his mean left hook. Let's see him take somebody on. I mean, as far as that goes, but is that the fight I want to see? No, I would rather see Fury and Joshua. I want to see that big fight. I want to see someone unify all those belts at heavyweight. And if Joshua is supposed to be, the future and the man at heavyweight, I want to see him do it not against Ruiz. I want to see him do it against a better opponent. And I think Fury is definitely a much better opponent and is very dangerous. And I mean, he better be training pretty well. Both of them should be.
Fury's a lot bigger than him too, isn't he? I mean, reach-wise and height-wise, I think.
If you've seen Anthony Joshua, that man has like muscles on top of muscles.
No, I'm talking about bigger than White. Dillian Whyte.
Oh.
Fury bigger. He's like way taller and way bigger reach than Dillian Whyte.
Yeah, I might have to defer to Rich on that one. I'm not 100% sure how tall White is, but I mean, Joshua's like 6'8", Fury's like 6'9" or something like that. So, I mean, these are big dudes. White ain't no joke either, but maybe, Rich, maybe you can touch a little bit more on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's like 6'3" or 6'4".
Oh.
That's a big reach advantage.
Tiny.
Tiny. It's 6'3", 6'4". What do you think, Filthy Rich, about Dillian Whyte calling people out here?
Well, if he's calling out Tyson Fury, that's the name of the game. The target's on your back. Dillian Whyte's getting publicity for this because of course, when we talk to me, it always freezes. So Dillian Whyte's getting the publicity for this because I believe people think, at least in the media, the boxing circles, believe he's probably the only one that can beat Tyson Fury. I mean, I'm sure right now everyone's got to be calling out Tyson Fury. Why aren't we hearing about everyone else? Because no one else really has a chance. Dillian Whyte has a chance. Obviously, Anthony Joshua has a chance. I think Anthony Joshua is the king. Obviously, Tyson Fury's the Gypsy King. Now, going back to, I don't know if it's the original question or what, but as far as vacating the belt, vacate the belt then. Who cares? It only makes for not a better fight, but it makes for a fight in the future. Don't know what to do after Joshua and after Deontay Wilder. Well, Dillian Whyte has my other belt. I'm going to go after it. Or Anthony Joshua wins, and now Joshua has to go after Dillian Whyte. People should want these belts in order to force other fighters to unify these divisions. So I have no problem with what Dillian Whyte said. Again, I think everyone else is saying this, but only in the inner boxing circles do we know Dillian Whyte is saying this.
I was thinking here as you guys were talking about this, and you brought up everyone's calling out people, and I don't know how they're going to do this with the gates and stuff like that. Obviously, we're talking because COVID is running rampant in America here, but it's not running rampant in Europe right now. They're having full soccer stadiums. They're having, they got it under control over there. They're down to like under 50 or 100 cases a day in a lot of those places in Europe right now, where they've cut off the rest of the world. Maybe they're going to start moving fights back over to Wembley and stuff like that, having them in Europe. I don't know if you can have, since they banned American travelers, if that counts for athletes too or not, but maybe they get an exemption or whatnot. But yeah, that'd be interesting to see if we just have them all over there, for a while, I
think you're onto something, Dr. Rader.
That's right. That's right. So, all right, boys, that was Brews and News this week. Let's move on to the Filthy Five. All right, if you're first joining us, if you're joining us for the first time, we usually do a Filthy Five segment, which is these two have their own top five personal top five lists in their own or in a division. This week we decided to change it up since it's our 15th show. If you watched our 10th show, we had a combined list where we did current pound for pound 10 list basically, and we went through that. We decided this week for our 15th show we're do something a little different. We're going to do a top 10 list of pound for pound of all time. But we do things a little different here. We're going to give you our 10 through 6 on this show, and then once a week until we hit our 20th show, we'll release one more person. So next week we'll have the 5th and the 4th and the 3rd. We'll keep going like that until we get to our number 1 on our 20th show. How we do the scoring here is everyone gave me their top 15 boxers, and then I scored it. Their number 1 guy got 15 points, and number 2 guy got 14 points, and so on and so on and so on down to 1. Then I added up the points, and we scaled it on that. So I will tell you who our 10 through 6 are one at a time. I'll tell you where we each had them ranked, and then we'll talk about that boxer a little bit. As I said, it's our top 10 pound for pound of all time. But we're just going to show you 10 through 6 this week. So, boys, you ready?
Yes. Let's get our consensus.
So, a little disclaimer. I know the list. These guys do not know how the list turned out. They each sent me the list, and so they have no idea who the top 10 are as of this recording. So, it'll be a little surprise for both of them, and then we'll just move on, and we'll talk a little bit of each of them, and I'm rambling on. So, let's just get on with the list here. All right. Our number 10 pound for pound list with 17 points was Sugar Ray Leonard. Sugar Ray Leonard. I had him at 7. I had the highest at 7. James, you had him at 13. Richie, you had him at 11. Richie, why don't you start us off with a little talk about Sugar Ray Leonard?
All right. Well, I guess one fun little fact I have written in my handy little notes here is he was the first boxer to accumulate $100 million in total earnings over like throughout his career. 36-3 with 25 knockouts, a 20-year career. Started at welterweight, moved up to light heavyweight. Beat the likes of Benitez and Hearns and Hagler. Beat Roberto Duran twice. He fought a guy named Donnie Lalonde for the super middleweight and light heavyweight titles in '89. His only notable losses were to terrible Terry Norris and Hector Macho Camacho. But I had him ranked at number 11. But God, this whole bottom through 20, you can't really go wrong. But that's where I have him, and I think number 10's a good little spot for him.
Yeah, he if it wasn't for his eye injury, he may have been in the top 5 or top 3 of all time too. He did lose once to Duran. They had them two fights.
He had a draw with Hearns.
Yeah, he had a draw with Hearns. He lost to Duran, but then beat him the second time.
The No Mas fight.
Yep, and then that controversial decision against Marvin Hagler, but which is a great fight if you ever go watch that fight. I like that fight a lot. Just so you know, we had 22 different boxers end up on our list here with some honorable mentions. So there's a lot of different talk in them. Judge, you want to say anything about Sugar Ray Leonard? You had him at 13, but he still cracked your list, but not your top 10.
He's not in my top 10, but he easily could have been, man. He doesn't have as big of a career, like fight-wise. When you fight 20 years and you only have like 40 fights, that's crazy low. But
he fought good fighters.
I mean, he like people. I'm pretty sure people were ducking him like nobody's business. I mean, he was still an Olympic gold medalist. You know, all the points that Rich touched on. Like, he fought people. He retired twice and came back, you know, after his second retirement and beat Hagler. Like, I don't know, man. Welterweight, junior middleweight, super middleweight, light heavyweight. Like, if you're talking about pound for pound people, that's 5 divisions. That's what you like to see in this. That's somebody who can move up and down in weight and fight whoever and still be dominant. I have no problem putting Sugar Ray Leonard up at number 10. I personally just had him a little lower, but hey, either way, it's nice to see him in that list.
So I'm going to comment a little bit since I had him ranked the highest at 7. Fairness and Information Act, I'm kind of like the common man of this group. These guys are the experts. They know more than me. So I gave guys bumps that I knew more about. Obviously, I did research about some of these guys, a lot of these guys, and I learned things about guys I didn't know. But my personal list had a lot more guys of people that I knew as a common boxing fan. So if that screws up the rankings a little bit, so be it. I mean, that's why we do it this way. And Sugar Ray Leonard, he was also kind of like the big face of boxing after Muhammad Ali left. I mean, he was kind of the main guy for a while, So I had him as high as 7, but that puts it right at number 10 for our list. Let's move on to our number 9 here. So our number 9, coming in at 19 points, was Joe Louis. Joe Louis. I had him ranked at 4, the Brown Bomber. I had him at 4. James, you had him at 9. Richie, you didn't have him ranked.
Oh, snap.
Which was very surprising to me. I thought you were a big Joe Louis guy. And I mean, look at your list. Your list is phenomenal. But I was surprised that you couldn't find a spot for Joe Louis in there. The Brown Bomber. Now, that was a great boxer. Though coming to America. James, you want to talk a little bit about Joe Louis? I'll jump in there a little bit, too, and we'll check in with Rich.
Yes, I do. Now, I can see why Rich would not have him on his list because he was only a heavyweight. He just played in one division, and he didn't really move around, obviously. 17-year career, 68-3, 54 knockouts. He won the heavyweight championship in 1937 and retired in 49 as the champion. That, at the time, was the longest reigning champion ever. Like, it was 11 years and 8 months or something crazy like that. I think Klitschko now holds the title because he held it longer. But at the time, that stood for years and years and years. He still had 25 title defenses, which is just crazy. But for me, even though he was only in one division, Joe Louis was still a good boxer, man. If he wasn't so big, like, he could easily have been dominant in other divisions. However, it just didn't play out that way. But another reason why I have him in my top 10, right at 9, just like this list says, is he was at the time during World War II, or maybe World War One. It was just World War II. He was such an instrumental figure at the time. It was crazy when he beat Max Schmeling out of Germany. Holy cow, man. Like, that was just huge. Even though it didn't seem like a lot of stuff, it's, America beating Germany. That was a big thing at the time. And I mean, it just, I don't know, man. Some of that stuff just transcends. Like, it just makes you bigger than the sport. And I think just because of how dominant he was, how many knockouts he had, how instrumental he was, that he deserves to be in the top 10. So that's why I can put him at number 9.
No, a knock against him. He may have stuck around a little too long. He might have done the Muhammad Ali effect where he stuck around way too long, fought some fights he probably shouldn't have fought. He fought Rocky Marciano late in his career. As they say in Coming to America, he was 137 years old when they fought. But he always lied about his age, But Rich, I was surprised that you didn't have him on there. You want to talk a little bit about Joe Louis?
There's no reason to not have Joe Louis on this list. I had room for one heavyweight, one true heavyweight. Joe Louis is a true heavyweight. Had we gone maybe 16 through 20, 20 through 16, whatever you want to call it, I would probably have to mix it up a little bit and put Joe Louis somewhere in there, and even take my 15 guy and lower him to 20 and sneak Joe Louis somewhere in that, 11 to 15 range or something. The thing with Joe Louis, what people don't realize is once Jack Johnson lost his belt, another black heavyweight champion would not come around again. They wouldn't even get a title shot because that's what this country was in the United States was all about. So when Joe Louis got that title shot, I don't know who he fought, but he had to be perfect. When they compare him, they call him like the Jackie Robinson of boxing. When people are calling you outside your name, making racist remarks, you have to be perfect. You have to be. I don't mean to cause any controversy here. This is a boxing show, but he had to be Barack Obama. You cannot have any scandals under your name. When you knock a guy out, you walk directly to the corner. You don't stand above them and do all this other stuff, because in the future, there won't be another black heavyweight champion. He played his cards perfectly. Just like James said, at the height of World War II, when you're fighting a German. This reminds me a lot of the 1980 U.S. hockey Olympic team when they played the Russians. This was like the prequel to all that. I don't know what else I can add. We can go on and on about Joe Louis, but I want to at least throw that in there.
All those reasons are why I have him up so high at number 4. He was just he was a monumental name in boxing history. I mean, you have to respect the history behind Joe Louis. Being champ that long in that kind of era, where he's probably hated in his own country by a lot of people. You know, they didn't want him to be the champ, but he was just that good. And as you said, you have to go through all of that. He's not just fighting the person in the ring. He's fighting the people around the ring that are talking to him and putting him down and stuff like that. And the Brown Bomber comes in at number 9 on our pound for pound list. All right, let's move on to number 8. And we got our first active boxer. We have Manny Pacquiao comes in at number 8. Manny Pacquiao, I had him at 10. James, you had him at 7. Richie, you had him at 9. James, you had him the highest at 7. You've pretty much been dead on so far, pretty close, or your box has been right around there. Why don't you start us off about the Pac-Man, Manny Pacquiao?
Yeah, most definitely, man. I think I've talked about this even on previous shows, or we did the active pound for pound list. Manny Pacquiao is an amazing boxer. He is someone who has gone to win belts in 8 different weight classes. If you want to talk about pound for pound best, no one else in history has done that. He has 12 total titles in his career, but 8 belts in different weight classes. That's insane. He's actually the only boxer in history to win titles in 4 decades, if you want to get that crazy. And he's still fighting. So he's not even that crazy old, but he's still crazy old, but he's still fighting at this point, which is just insane. And it doesn't seem like he's slowing down. I don't know. It's like the Energizer Bunny, man. He just keeps going and going and going. And it's awesome to watch. And I'm glad that he's in our lifetime that we get to see. Like, this is probably one of our biggest, at least for me personally, the one that I've been able to see from when I was little to now. And it's awesome to see that.
The living legend.
Exactly. And I don't know, man. I
Check
think
him out
he's
with
one of a
blonde hair
kind.
looking like Slim Shady. Check that out. That's
wow. Everybody's got a persona at one point, right? But yeah, man, he is amazing. That's why he's in my all-time top 10, even though he's still an active fighter. And so we'll see what else he can do, and it's gonna be crazy. But that's why he's at number 7 for me.
Yeah, I mean, he is what when you talk about pound for pound, he does it in every division. I mean, he's the record holder for the most division titles, and when you talk pound for pound, that's the pretty much definition of pound for pound, being just an amazing fighter. Filthy Rich, I know you love Manny Pacquiao too, and you want to see him still fight. Hopefully, maybe some boxers that we want to see get knocked out by him very soon. You want to talk a little bit about Manny Pacquiao? You had him at 7, or at 9. Pardon me, at 9. So you're pretty.
Yeah, Pacquiao at 9, and it started off as like a straw weight, all the way up to junior middleweight. He fought Floyd at 154, and I don't even think he made weight. I think he was he weighed a whole division below him, but it was for a junior middleweight I don't know if a title was on the line. I don't think Floyd had any titles, but I just want to quickly go down the list of the body bags he's had. Keith Thurman, Adrian Broner, Lucas Matisse, he's beaten Timothy Bradley twice, Juan Manuel Marquez 3 times, Sugar Shane Mosley, Antonio Margarito, Miguel Cotto, Ricky Hatton, Oscar De La Hoya, Marco Antonio Barrera 3 times, and Eric Morales twice.
And he would have beat Mayweather if Mayweather would have fought him early on.
He lost to Jeff Horn, who I thought he beat. He lost to Floyd on like a very shaky fight. He was injured in the 4th round, couldn't take the cortisone shots. He also lost to Bradley and Marquez, guys he had beaten multiple times already. This guy is one of the greatest fighters of all time. We have him, what'd you say, 7?
He's at 8 right now, but James had him at 7, you had him at 9, I had him at 10. Puts him at 8 overall for us.
Saying all this out loud, I think I went too low with him. I think he should be somewhere 7, 8, 9. Here's the big story with him. We may touch on this one day soon. He wants to fight Golovkin. The man wants to fight Gennady Golovkin, the monster. He wants to fight a guy at 160. They're all telling him no. The guy wants to move to 160 and fight the king. If you think Canelo's the king, that's great. But Golovkin's go fight like a crummy little middleweight. Don't just start at the top. He wants to fight Golovkin.
How much time's he got? He doesn't have a lot of time. He's got to start at the top.
All
85 years old.
But still, if you just fight a slouch at 160, that's one more division under your belt. And he could beat a guy at 160. He ain't beating Golovkin, but he can probably beat someone at 160.
He's not beating Golovkin, but he'd put up a hell of a fight. He'd go down swinging. I'll tell you that. We've seen Pacquiao take some bad knockouts before. We've seen it, and he probably hasn't faced anybody that hits as hard as Golovkin does. But Golovkin also doesn't hit as hard as he used to anymore either. Yeah. So, I think that'd be a fun fight to watch, actually. You know how much I love Golovkin, so I'd pay for that fight. I'd let Jim pay for that fight, and I go over there and watch it. Let me rephrase that.
I'd let him pay for it, too.
That's what we do here. We let Judge Jimmy James pay for the fight, and then we go over there and watch it.
And they call me Filthy Rich. It's him.
Hey, you go there, too. Oh, you're talking about James. I thought you were talking about me being filthy for going over there.
No.
We got to go hang with the bailiff. So. All right, Manny Pacquiao comes in at number 8. All right, moving on to number 7 with 25 points. Now, this is another sad chapter in boxing history. Sam Langford comes in at number 7. Hell of a fighter, great fighter actually. Never got a title shot because he was black, and everyone feared him. Nobody wanted to face him. Jack Dempsey was quoted as saying, "The hell I feared no man. There was one man I wouldn't fight because I knew he would flatten me. I was afraid of Sam Langford." That's a big thing coming from Jack Dempsey, So we're talking Sam Langford at 7. I had him at 13 just because I didn't know as much about him until today. James, you had him at 6, and Richie, you had him all the way up at 4. So I know you know a lot more about him than I do, so I'll let you go first talking about Sam Langford.
Well, I know about him as much as anyone else, but he started his career at lightweight and moved all the way up to heavyweight. You know that quote you just said from Jack Dempsey? Sam Langford was 40 years old and blind in one eye when he said that. Jack Dempsey was the king of the world. This dude was 40 years old and blind, and Jack Dempsey still didn't want no parts of him. He was ducked by, we know he was like ducked by Jack Johnson. Jack Johnson was, he was afraid. I guess I can say that without being clobbered by Johnson, Mr. Johnson there. But Jack Johnson was afraid of Sam Langford. I have him so high on this pound for pound list because he has moved up in many divisions, starting off at like 135, going up to heavyweight. That is absurd. 170. There's disputed records with him. Career started in 1902, spanned into 1926. which he was forced to retire because his second eye was starting to go blind. So he was halfway through his career. He was fighting with a blind, I believe it was a right eye. And towards the end of his career in 1926, he started losing sight in his other eye, and it forced him into retirement. He ended up getting an operation. He was found, I think it was homeless and whatnot by a newspaper reporter in New York. And they raised $100,000 to give him his sight back, and he got his sight back. But going back to his record, 178, 32, and 39 is a disputed record because there's also the 206, 48, and 55. This is when newspapers were making decisions and all these draws and stuff. We all remember the famous, was it that famous? Am I already forgetting? But the Iron Man match between Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, when it went all 60 minutes, it was a draw. There was not supposed to be an overtime. There
must be a winner, Rich.
So in boxing, that's how it ended. There was no scorecard. It just ended as a draw, and both men walked out of the ring. That's why there were so many draws in that era. You guys take it away.
He was only 5'6", too. I mean, that's
5'6", scary giant heavyweights.
Yeah, and the heavyweight fighters are scared of him. They didn't want to fight him, and he was blind.
We're not talking about a couple. We're talking about Jack Johnson and Jack Dempsey, two guys. When we do our top 10 heavyweights of all time, let me tell you, spoiler alert, I got them both in my top 5. I don't know if I'd put Sam Langford in there because I would just do true heavyweights like Joe Louis, but that I wanted to throw that out there. These are not just slouch heavyweights who are scared of them. These are the baddest, meanest guys at heavyweight who are afraid of Sam Langford, 5'6". Go on.
When you talk about pound for pound going from lightweight to heavyweight, that's a lot of divisions to go through. It's 40 pounds, James, what do you have to say about Sam Langford?
Well,
you had him at 6.
Yeah, I did, and I could have him a lot higher, man. You could make a case for him being number 1, to be honest with you.
Good, you could.
And I didn't have him there, but you got to realize back then they only had, I don't even remember how many divisions they had. They didn't have that many. Then. 8, right?
8 divisions. Yep.
Not the 15 or whatever the hell we have now.
Right.
To go from lightweight to welterweight to middleweight to heavyweight, that's a stretch, man. How he did that, and you took my line, Raider, but that Jack Dempsey quote,
I could do research too.
Me. For Jack Dempsey to say that I fear no man. There was one man I wouldn't fight because I knew he would flatten me, and that was Sam Langford, and he was afraid of him.
He was blind.
That's insanity, man.
40 years old. I get 40 years old.
40 years old blind, and he didn't want to fight him.
This time frame, this 1900s to 1940, had some of the greatest fighters of all time, and this guy just didn't get his just desserts, and that just sucks 100% for him, because he was so dominant when he did fight. Even though 167 wins, 117 were by knockout, man. That's got to be up there in the top 5 for knockouts of all time.
Is this the era where they were fighting 20 rounds too? A lot of the times.
20 plus on the regular, and up to 40 at sometimes. If you want to get to that, man. If you want to talk about people being hard as nails, 1900s to 1940s, these guys were no joke. What do you got? Mouthpiece? I don't think so. What do you got? Padded gloves? I don't think so, man. These are bare knuckle fights, and they would just go on forever. But either way, I don't need to ramble. Sam Langford I had at number 6. Where he's at this list, I think he deserves to be there. You guys have said everything else.
All right. Sam Langford, much respect, much respect. All right. Moving on to number 6, our final one we're going to reveal this week. There was a tie between 5 and 6 at 28 points. So how I do tiebreakers is the person that has the highest ranking by somebody gets the tiebreaker. So this person had a lower ranking than our number 5. And our number 6 is Roberto Duran, who we've talked about on this show before. I had him at 6, and that's where he ended up. Richie, you also had him at 6. James, you had a little lower at 8, so he brought it in at our number 6 spot. Roberto Duran Filthy Rich, you had him at 6, so let's let you talk about him a little bit first.
Something that came to mind when we were talking about Pacquiao, and James mentioned 4 decades he won a belt. Roberto Duran is the only boxer to win a fight. He didn't win a belt, but he won a fight in 5 different decades. I thought that was a pretty interesting little stat. Here's what I got for Roberto Duran. Yeah, well, 103. He's 103 and 16 with 70 knockouts. Check this out.
A lot of fights.
31-0 with 27 knockouts to begin his career. Took a loss and then went 41-0 with 29 knockouts. So basically, he started his career 72-1 with 56 knockouts. His next fight was a loss to Sugar Ray Leonard, and that's when it kind of goes downhill for him. He ends up losing to Leonard twice, Wilfred Benitez, Hagler, and
he beat Leonard once.
He became the welterweight champ in
hang
1980.
on. I didn't say anything like, hang on. He lost to Leonard. Yeah, he beat Leonard, but he lost to his 70. Let's see. He was 72-1. His 72nd win was to Leonard, and then he loses to Leonard. But he ends up losing to Leonard twice. He beats Wilfred Benitez. He loses to Wilfred Benitez, Marvin Hagler, and Hitman Hearns. They call him the 4 kings, but really Wilfred Benitez should be the 5th king. I don't know why he doesn't get his just dues. He also loses to Vinny Paz, Hector Macho Camacho twice, and William Joppy. This guy doesn't have very many notable wins other than that Sugar Ray Leonard win. But again, starting your career off at 72-1 with 56 KOs, you're moving up from junior lightweight all the way to, like some say, heavyweight. It may have been light heavyweight.
Yep.
A win in 5 different decades. Those are my notes for Hands of Stone. That's how he got his name with them knockouts. That's what I got.
He was a 6-time champion in 4 different weight classes: lightweight, welterweight, light middleweight, and middleweight. He fought from lightweight 135 to light heavyweight at 175. And he was active until 2001, 1968 till 2001. This guy was still fighting after I graduated high school 20-some years ago. This guy was still fighting. He was fighting for 20 years before I was born, and he was still fighting when I got out of high school. I mean, that is crazy how long he fought. And, he had 16 losses. That's 103 and 16 over all them divisions from lightweight to 135 to 175. That's a true pound-for-pound guy there. Yeah, he doesn't have a lot of big names, but, Sugar Ray Leonard, that's a pretty big name.
It's the only name he has on his resume. Unless I'm missing something here, but all the other guys, maybe they're Hall of Famers. I didn't take a hard look at them, but they're not, like, all-time top 100 pound for pound. I don't know. Like, he lost to those big-name guys, but still got to get in the ring and dance with them, and he did his thing.
Yeah, 31 fights in a row to start his career, 30 by knockouts, and 41. He wins his next 41 fights, 31 by knockout.
And those numbers are a little off. I have 27 knockouts and 29 knockouts. If you look at his records, I know it says 31-0 with 30 knockouts, but if you look at those fights, he didn't have 30 knockouts. He had 27 knockouts.
Right on. Judge, what do you want to get in on Roberto Duran here?
Dude, he's a beast. He's a beast, man. He's a man with power. He's an offensive juggernaut. That's what you want to say. That's all I can say. I mean, you guys have said everything else in this point. 103, 70 knockouts to end his career. Like, that, he's in my top 10, no problem for this. He is, he doesn't have too many big names on his thing, but dominance is dominance. And it's not like he didn't fight people, but he did end up fighting better opponents at the end of his career as opposed to stuff in the middle. And there might not have really been, if I want to think about that, there might not have been too many in the divisions that he was fighting in that were real big names.
Well, think about this. He may have been getting ducked. That's why he has to take what's in front of you. If you're getting ducked by Benitez and Hagler and Hearns, and they're just waiting for you to slip. That could be why he wasn't getting those big name fights to start his career. It's just a theory. I don't have any proof behind that, but we got to go by what's given to us.
Fair
we
enough,
talked about on the question of the week a couple weeks ago about who would win a fight between Duran and Chavez.
Oh,
and
if that fight
That would've been a great fight
could have
to see.
happened, man, that would have been fantastic. But I think Duran wins. He's just got heavier hands than Chavez does, and Chavez ain't no slouch. But Duran, if you watch Duran fight, he's just a beast. He's just a beast. And
he was mean, man. he had knockout power. I mean,
yeah,
get hands of stone for winning by decision very often.
he just never
finished
quit,
fights.
man. Listen to Sugar Ray Leonard talk about him, talk about his fights with him, and it's no joke. The stuff that he says is just awesome. I recommend watching it, but I don't know. I don't have too much else to say. He deserves to be in the top 10.
All right. Well, that's our 10 through 6 here on our pound for pound of all time. We're going to take a little break after this show, so you're probably going to have about 2 weeks or maybe a week and a half or 2 weeks. When we're back after our little break here, we'll get into our number 5, and then we'll do one a week until we get to episode 20 where we reveal our number 1 pound for pound of all time. But that's a pretty good start there. Once again, 10, Sugar Ray Leonard, 9, Joe Louis, 8, Manny Pacquiao, 7, Sam Langford, 6, Roberto Duran. It's hard to argue with any of those. I mean, they're all historically great fighters. And, you can ask 100 boxing fans and get 100 different lists, but I like our list right there. I'll tell you that. It's a solid list. And the way we do it, it brings in all 3 of our opinions, and this is a way to kind of to put us right where we're at. So.
Your list, Raider Live.
I'd like to say, if you got a different list for those 6 through 10, put it in the comments. Let's hear your thoughts, because I would love to argue with you back and forth about this. Put it in the
check
comments.
our comments, and we will
it.
respond to them too. So even you can preface who you want to talk to in the comments, and they will answer your question down there.
You can even take a shot at who 1 through 5 is, because me and Jimmy James don't know who 1 through 5 is. Nope. So in the comments, whatever you got to do, leave who you think is 1 through 5, and then criticize 6 through 10.
Or even better, just who you think number 5 is next week, because we're just going to do it one at a time. We'll see how many of you guys get our number 5 right. Remember, they were tied for our number 6, but they were ranked higher by somebody. So, but we'll talk about that next week. So we'll put that on the back burner here, boys. That's a fun start to that list. You guys satisfied with 10 through 6 there? It's the first time you guys have heard it.
Never satisfied. I'm upset.
Well, tough. All right, boys, let's move on to the 13th round. All right, this is your first time joining us. Again, thank you, and hit that subscribe button and the notification so you know when I upload these. We're going to get out, and we're kind of on a bad schedule now. I got behind on some shows, but if you're watching this, we're going to be caught up here after our break. We're going to be releasing these once a week. We film these on Wednesdays, and we hope to release them on Fridays. So tune in for that. If this is your first time joining us, the 13th round is where we talk about something in sports, but not necessarily boxing. And boys, there was some big news released this week. Me and Judge Jimmy James and Filthy Rich are all very big football fans. Me and Jimmy James a little more on the fantasy side. Filthy Rich is more a love of the sport. But something happened this week that affects both fantasy and those people that just love football. And that was Cam Newton signed with the Patriots, the worst kept secret in the world. And the Patriots did it again. They signed a former MVP for $1 million. That's just unbelievable. So I want to ask you guys, does that make the Patriots instant Super Bowl favorites? Can they beat Kansas City and Baltimore with Cam Newton when Bill Belichick figuring out their ways? Or is it too little too late and the Patriots run is over? Filthy Rich, you look like you really want to jump in on this one, so I'm going to give that one to you first.
Are they Super Bowl favorites? It puts them at the top. Maybe not number 1. I'd still think Kansas City is the Super Bowl favorite. But Belichick historically and his defense can win games. And now you have a quarterback that can play like Mahomes and play like Lamar Jackson. If Cam stays healthy, I could see them in the AFC title game with either Baltimore and Kansas City, one of those two. They have the easy schedule. They always have the easy. It says they don't have the easy schedule. They have the easy division. I will never Belichick. You know, he does what he cheats. He cheats. You know, he does what he gets fined for one Cam, and then he signs another Cam. That's a good move. That's a smart thing on his part. This puts him at don't bet against Belichick. That's what I'm getting out of this.
Hey, remember what Jesse Ventura said: "Win if you can, lose if you must, but always
cheat." Minnesota governor here.
Yeah, we filmed the show in Minnesota, and he was, I think, all of our favorite governor. He was great when he was around, and when you say things like that, it was always awesome. James, I'm going to kind of go on a little fantasy side with you a little bit. How do you think Cam Newton affects his fantasy value? By the way, if you don't know, we will be releasing our fantasy show here in late July, so tune in for that. But not only fantasy, I want to hear your fantasy impact on him, but I also want to just hear, the answer to the question. Does that make the Patriots in that favorite to win the Super Bowl or go back?
Wow. I mean, if you're going to talk about it in the AFC, to all of a sudden make them Super Bowl favorites with Baltimore and Kansas City in there, I think that's crazy. Are they up there? Sure. I don't think they're the favorite. Baltimore's the favorite. There's no way. You got Lamar Jackson. He's just insane. He's set up to do the same thing he did last year. But to get off topic, Cam Newton is 31 years old. Filthy Rich said it best when he says, if he stays healthy. And that's going to be the biggest thing right there, if he stays healthy. Now, Tom Brady stayed pretty dang healthy in his career at New England. So if Cam Newton stays healthy, you said it, Raider, that is a former MVP. And he's only 31 years old. Like, that's not old for a quarterback. Quarterbacks can play for a while. Now, for a mobile quarterback, that might be different. But I think the biggest knock against Cam Newton is that the weapons that he has around him. N'Keal Harry, Mohamed Sanu, no tight end. James White, maybe. Sony Michel, like, that doesn't excite me.
What's Raider Live doing?
If you look at what he was doing when his MVP season happened, tell me some people that he had on that team for Carolina that were actually all-stars or good.
Yep.
So I thought. So his fantasy implications, I think he's going to be a steal for wherever you get him. Unless people are going crazy with it. But Rich was also right that New England wins on their defense. And if you look at that, Brady has comebacks, and he has comebacks all over the place, but their defense has been steady year after year after year after year. And it's kind of ridiculous because when you said this in pre-show, I didn't really realize how dominant their defense was, especially with like the turnover game. It's not even like they looked flashy. It was just a turnover game, man. And they just win those turnover battles.
Yes.
So, I mean, Cam Newton.
Bobby used to say the bend don't break offense.
Exactly.
Get all the yards you want on him. You ain't going to score.
That's true. But, I mean, Cam Newton, I think he's probably got high up. He's got high upside. He does need to stay healthy. If he can stay healthy, and if the tools that he has around him actually do just are adequate, man, I'd probably call him a top 15 quarterback. I don't know if he breaks the top 10. I don't know if he breaks the top 10. You can give me your thumbs up all you want, but you got to realize that this is the first time he's been in a new scheme, in a new offense. He's been with Ron Rivera forever. He doesn't have Christian McCaffrey to dump off. He's got James White, but you think James White's going to be the same? Timing's going to be off. It's not the same. It's just not the same. But we'll see. That's only my opinion. Right now, I'd say his top 15. That could change. But
all right. Well, I'm gonna end it on why you're wrong. Because that's what I can do, and I like to wrap it up a little bit. But he never had good receivers in Carolina. He never did. He's never had good receivers there. It was always him doing things with his legs and with his running backs. throwing to Chris McCaffrey, dump offs.
McCaffrey and Greg Olson. You're gonna have one of them friggin' like
He's got Julian Edelman. He's got Julian Edelman there. Edelman, hey, that's probably the best receiver he's ever had. That's not a tight end. I deny that, and that's what Edelman does. He's the king of them slant routes. Cam's going to do that. He's going to hit them slant routes. And one thing that you're missing is Rich touched on a little bit. Bill Belichick gets the best out of every player that he has or he doesn't play. Because he does. That's what he does. He won a lot of games with Matt Castle. I mean, he found the way to figure out the best things they do and do it.
Look, I'm going to stop you right there. I'll tell you right now, just because he was signed to a $1 million contract for 1 year doesn't even mean he's going to make the team by the start of the season, man. I have seen people get cut quicker in New England than I can throw.
Yeah, you're talking guys like Albert Hainsworth, who was a nutbag. You're talking about guys like Chad Ochocinco. Those are the guys that get cut in New England. Cam Newton is not
Antonio
like
Brown. What are you talking about? People
again,
are big
nutbag.
name people,
I'm
man.
talking about
nutbags. You're crazy, dude. You are crazy. You can get cut in New England if you don't perform or you don't show and you don't conform to that system. And they will cut you and not think a second about it. $1 million. That is nothing to Belichick. Let's wipe it. That's it. I'm telling you, man. If top 15 right now, we'll see.
I personally, in my rankings, which we'll talk about later, I got him at 8. I got him at 8 right now. And that could definitely go higher. It could definitely go higher because he runs the ball so good. And the last little thing I'm gonna touch on here, who it's gonna affect the most fantasy wise is someone that we all hate is Sony Michel. I mean, Sony Michel, he's the king of the 1-yard touchdown because he can't do anything else. That's all gonna go to Cam now. Cam's gonna get those goal line touchdowns. Sony Michel is absolutely worthless. James White, big boost in my opinion. And so is Julian Edelman. I'm trying to trade for him in one of our leagues. But we'll talk about that in the fantasy show. All right. I think we touched on that enough here. Let's move on to the Filthy Fan question of the week. All right, Rich, our Filthy Fan question of the week comes from Lexi in St. Paul. And Lexi asks, what's more dangerous, boxing or MMA?
All right. Thanks for the question. So I want to extend this question a bit. I think the question would be more like, what sport is more dangerous in the long term and in the short term, boxing or MMA? I have a few ways to go with this. I'll say with boxing, there's probably more deaths in the ring immediately, result-wise. So in that sense, boxing would be more dangerous. Long-term health. How is your liver? Brain damage, things like that. Probably boxing, because we know how old the sport is. MMA is still fairly young and new, and they're establishing rules and things of that nature. Careers don't last as long in MMA. At least I don't think they do. I'm not an MMA guy. But ultimately, the question boils down to, in my opinion, when your kids walk up to you and tell you, Mommy, or, Lexi, Mommy, I'm going to be an athlete. I'm going to be in combat sports. I am going to be either an MMA fighter or a boxer. And I am letting you choose which one I will be. What are you going to pick? And if it were up to me, everything I just said about boxing and MMA, I still take the boxing route. Because I don't want to see my kid getting kicked in the face and anything like that. I want to see my kid. I don't have any kids. Maybe this is all you, but I would rather see my kid in the ring in boxing where there are some rules and things of that nature. I can't do the MMA thing. That would hurt me to watch that. So in my personal opinion, I don't know. I don't even know how to answer the question. It sounds like MMA is the more dangerous sport. I think boxing is. Yet I would still rather my kid go into boxing than to MMA. Thanks for the question.
I think you touched on it right, that short-term MMA might be more dangerous, but long-term boxing, you're basically hitting the head and the liver constantly. In MMA, in the short term, you can get your arm or your leg broken. That's not going to happen in boxing. You may break your hand, but, you know, you're not going to get your arm or your, foot ripped off like you can in MMA. But, long-term of constantly taking 300 punches to the head, which doesn't happen in MMA. You're not going to get 300 punches to the head like you are in a 10 to 15 round fight. That I think in the era of concussions, that we've learned more about concussions. And, actually we touched on it tonight with our pound for pound list, people going blind and stuff over 30, 40-year careers. I mean, if it were I'm the only one here with kids. For my kid, I'd say, well, let's take up chess. That's combat. Let's just do that. But that's me. I played football. I kind of want to keep my kid away from the contact sports because, now I'm old and fat and it hurts to walk around the neighborhood. So, but James, what do you think? We'll let you jump in here a little bit on what do you think is more dangerous.
Yeah, well, I've got friends who are MMA fighters and Muay Thai fighters, and short term, yeah, that's they do have shorter careers, but it's more violence quicker. It's 9-minute fights if it goes that long, as opposed to 36-minute fights for boxers, and it's just not the same. It's the repeated boxers looks like it's safer, but you're hitting repeat. I mean, look at some of these guys who are throwing 1,500 punches in a match, and they're hitting 20% of those. You want to hit that over and over and over again? Like, that's
getting punched in the face hundreds of times in one night.
Exactly.
You can't take a punch to the face once in a bar.
That's not gonna hurt in the short term, but the long term is gonna have bigger effects. I do agree with Rich that I don't think we have enough sample size. I think the UFC hasn't been around long enough. But my personal opinion, short term, just like Rich, UFC is more dangerous. Boxing is more dangerous in the long term. UFC fighters usually have a shorter lifespan, just because they get beat up so quick, and if they do break an arm or something like that, they just want to get out and do something else.
But we have long-term evidence too about boxing. Muhammad Ali got Parkinson's because of boxing.
Well,
probably his last two fights. We've seen boxers go way downhill in the tail ends of their careers.
But it's because we have the time frame, we have the science and the research behind it. We don't have that same amount of time with UFC, as much as that UFC has been around for. It's just we don't have the same amount of data, but their stuff is so short, and it's not the same injuries. It's not like I can only punch you in the head and the body, and that's it. I can break your arm, I can submission you out, I can break your foot, I can break your shin. It doesn't matter, man. Like, I can do all these other things to get you to quit, to submit. And yeah, it hurts in the short term, but it doesn't hurt in the long term. Man, actually, I just convinced myself right there. Boxing is definitely the more dangerous sport in the long term, 100%, because of that stuff, because you're taking repeated hits to the same spot of your face or body nonstop. UFC is definitely dangerous in the short term, but
and unless your name is Lomachenko, there's not as many submissions in boxing either.
Well, let me throw this out there too. I just want to, as far as the Muhammad Ali thing goes, Jake LaMotta lived to like 98 years old or something. I mean, Jake LaMotta just died a few years ago, and that dude was in some brutal fights. So you still can live a long, long life. There are still I don't know, there's got like George Foreman is still alive. He was known as like one of the meanest dudes. Mike Tyson, baddest man on the planet, is still alive. As far as like MMA goes, and I say MMA, I don't say UFC. UFC is like the king of MMA, where you want to go. I don't know how to describe it. But as far as like MMA goes, we don't know the supply and demand on fighters yet. Boxing has been done all over the world There's probably thousands upon thousands of people in each country that are competing just to be the best in their division in their country. MMA is still brand new. Where now I think MMA is actually going to be getting some Olympic stuff. There's never been MMA Olympics. There's been boxing in the Olympics for several years. So we'll see a bigger sample size as far as the athlete goes in the coming years, in the next 20 years. I don't even know if I'm going to make it another 20 years, but this show will hopefully go on without me. But I do want to just throw that in there. The whole Jake LaMotta thing. There are boxers who can live to be very old. So,
well, as I was just looking up, I was curious of a fighter we were talking about. Roberto Duran, he's still alive.
He's still alive. Leonard's still alive. Hagler's still alive. All the four kings are still alive.
I want to give a shout out to him, though, that I wish him the best. He was, this is breaking news. He was diagnosed with COVID 3 days ago. So, I mean, our show reaches out to Roberto Duran. Hopefully you get a full recovery and everything like that. And hope you make it there, champ, and everything. He's 69 years old, so that's not a good time to get COVID. And I forgot that he was in Rocky too.
Will you let James talk?
Okay, go ahead, Judge.
I just want to say, you're talking about we don't have all the MMA stuff. Like MMA has been around for a very long time. You're talking about MMA. That's mixed martial arts. It's been around for a very long time. It doesn't have the same type of coverage as boxing. So you got to take that into account. That's been around all over the world for a very long time. So I just want to.
It's getting regulated now, though. I mean, it wasn't regulated back in the early Ultimate Fighting days.
You got
put guys in the ring where you could eye gouge and kick in the crotch, and you can do all that.
That's UFC mumbo jumbo, man. That's that mumbo jumbo. You're talking about MMA. That's different stuff. That's been around. It just hasn't been in the public eye. So it's been around, maybe not as long as boxing, but it's been around for a long time, and especially worldwide. So I just wanted to say that.
That's cool.
Well, we didn't want to hear it.
Well,
one more thing on Duran. Do you guys remember he was in Rocky 2? I didn't remember that until I just looked that up now to find out that he was. I was looking up how old he was while we were talking there, and he was in Rocky 2. He played the sparring partner in Rocky 2 that Rocky couldn't catch when he wasn't training right because his mind was all messed up. He was jumping around. He couldn't catch the guy. That was Roberto Duran.
I'm gonna have to watch Rocky 2 now because I do not remember that. And
I'm gonna send you the scene. I found it on YouTube, so I'm gonna send you the scene. It's crazy. I didn't realize it was him.
Tommy Morrison was in Rocky 5. He died of AIDS.
There's no Rocky 5. There's no such thing as Rocky 5.
He was in Rocky 5.
There's no such thing as
we know Tommy the Gun. Yeah,
Tommy
that was a shame, man. That's a whole.
What was that then? That's not Rocky 5?
That's Rocky 5.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Stallone.
Don't let him fool you, Rich.
Stallone has said, "I hate Rocky 5 to the point I wish it wasn't even part. I don't even consider it canon. Like he didn't even put it in any of the other films that he made, the new ones. You know, he just totally glossed over Rocky 5. Like I don't even want to talk about it. They just went right to Ivan Drago.
Well, Tommy, that's the other thing. Tommy Gunn, what's his name, died of AIDS.
Tommy Morrison.
So, like, just because some boxers die at an early age, sometimes it's not boxing related. So keep that in mind too. Patrick Day died in the ring last year or 2 years ago. Maxim Dadajev died in the ring. I mean, after the 11th round, there was another guy later that month in Argentina who died in a fight. So even short term, it's probably more painful in MMA, but I don't think they've ever had a recorded death under at least Dana White's watch. But boxing has its issues.
Fair enough.
It's a great. All right, Lexi, we were kind of all over the map there. I hope you
you were all over the map. I was on point.
Well, Filthy Rich, his name, the Filthy Rich fan question of the week. But I hope that answered your question, Lexi. Tell your kid to take up chess. You know, that's how we do. That's how I feel about it. If you have a question for Filthy Rich and Judge Jimmy James to answer, please put it in the comments below. We'll answer it here on future shows, possibly. It's not going to be an every week segment. We're going to start rotating segments after this episode here. So look for that. We still want more questions, so please put them in the comments below. All right, boys, let's finish up this week with the fight of the week. Now, Judge Jimmy James, I forgot to mention to ask in the pre-show if you had a fight of the week this week, and now we're putting you on the spot. Do you have a fight of the week?
Yeah.
Oh, he does. All right, that's good.
I definitely am on the spot. I don't remember needing a fight of the week, so I apologize for that. But I mean, if we had a fight of the week, we've been talking about heavyweights.
I got one. I got one for you. If I could take your spotlight.
Don't
do it.
Roberto Duran versus Sugar Ray Leonard. Two guys we talked about tonight. That would be a good fight to go watch.
Fair enough.
I think that's a great
very
fight.
good fight. Very good fight. I watched it actually yesterday. Yeah, it's a fantastic
actually,
fight.
All three of their fights are really good. But I was mainly talking about one, the first one. So yeah, I mean, that would be my choice. I mean, it's Judge Jimmy James' fight of the week, but that was just my suggestion because I threw him on the spot.
Hey, let's do it.
All right. Filthy Rich, you got any comments about that fight?
No, but I'll take Hagler Hearns. One.
Ooh, there's another good one.
Come on, man. Hit, man.
We covered the four kings right there. Hagler, Hearns, Leonard, Duran. There's the four kings. You got 2 fights to watch, 4 of the kings right there.
And they may make our top 5. You don't know.
Gotta catch them all, man.
Possibly could make our top 5.
I like it.
If this is your first time joining us, please again hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you know when our shows are released. We're going to take a little break, boys. We earned it because we did 15 straight weeks and 17 shows, so we earned it. But we're going to take maybe 1 to 2 weeks off. Then we'll be back, and then we'll get into our top 5 pound for pound of all time. Starting with our number 5 next week, which was tied with Roberto Duran for 6. So that should be fun to get into. And you guys have any closing thoughts after 15 shows? Filthy Rich, you were here for all 15, or all 17, I should say, because we had 2 other shows called Unanimous Decision. You can check them out on the channel below. That's where we first brought Judge Jimmy James in. Any thoughts on 17 shows in?
I want to give a shout out to my Canadian family out there. Happy Canada Day to my Canadian family. I know they're watching. Love you guys. Thanks for watching. Shout out to my coworkers who are watching this every week, listening to this voice, listen to these 2 guys. Thank you guys, and thank you for everyone else who's watched, who hasn't given me feedback and whatever. And if you haven't watched, well, who cares? I don't even want you to watch. It's too late.
I've heard our YouTube statistics say we are loved in Canada. So thank you, Canada. We love you. We love you very much. Judge Jimmy James, you've been with us for 10 shows now, I want to say. Yeah, maybe 8. You got anything to talk about in 8 shows in? I believe you joined us in episode 9, right? So that's 6.
Man, I think your time frame is way off, but
yeah, I think your time frame's
either way, man.
Wait a minute, you joined in because you were here for a 10th. I think you were here for a 9th and 8th, and then you did the 2 the Unanimous Decision shows. So that's like 8-9 shows.
I don't know.
You know what, man? You can do the math later. Put it in the comments. I ain't worried about it. Either way, I appreciate everybody that's watching the show. I want to see your comments. I want to know what your 10 through 6 is. I want to know what yours are. I want to know if you agree, disagree. I want to know this stuff. I would love to debate with you on your list just to see what your opinion is on this stuff. It's fun. I love it. I love debating. Let's do it.
As I said, if you tag any of us in that comment, we will respond to you directly. Jim from his rocking chair and Filthy Rich from his awesome studio.
Hey, man.
From looks like Bill and Ted's land, all white.
I am in 1926 right now. So if you want to talk to me about some all-time pound for pound, 1926 is happening.
Well, then give Sam Langford a title shot, would you? Make it happen.
Whoa! I'll talk to him. I'll make it happen.
Great Depression's coming. Be careful.
Yeah.
We got years.
Stocks now.
We got years.
All right. For Filthy Rich and Judge Jimmy James, I am Raider Live. Thank you for joining us. Please subscribe. Hit that notification. We got a lot more great shows coming your way. This is going to be a little longer one. We're going to try to cut them down in time here a little bit in the future. So make sure you tune in every week. Please leave comments below and we'll get to them right away. Again, thank you all for joining us, and we will see you in a couple weeks.